In 2029, a Russian armored column crosses the eastern border of Poland. It's not a drill. It's not a limited incursion. It's a full-scale assault land, air, cyber, and missiles. NATO's Article 5 is triggered. Europe is on fire. World War III may have just begun. What if Russia launches a full-scale assault on Poland? This isn't just a military scenario, it's a geopolitical earthquake. Poland is not Ukraine. It's a core NATO member with deep US ties, a rapidly modernized army, and a long memory of history. An attack here would invoke direct retaliation from 31 nations on land, in the air, and possibly in space. If you want to understand how one nation's move could unravel global stability, like this video and subscribe for more high-stakes scenarios. In this 5-part series, we'll break down how a Russian assault could unfold, how NATO would respond, what battles might be fought, and how this war could end or spiral into the unimaginable. The invasion, how Russia strikes Poland. Russia's full-scale assault on Poland wouldn't come out of nowhere. It would follow months, maybe years of hybrid warfare, cyberattacks, disinformation, sabotage, and political destabilization. But when the tanks roll and missiles fly, the real war begins. Phase 1. Shock and disruption before the first soldier crosses the border. Russia launches coordinated cyberattacks on Poland's power grid, rail networks, and communications. Military satellites are jammed. GPS is disrupted. Confusion spreads. Simultaneously, ballistic and cruise missiles target key Polish military bases, airfields, and radar sites, especially near the eastern cities of Lublin and Białystok. The goal: cripple Poland's ability to coordinate and respond. Phase 2. The ground offensive. Russian armored divisions push west from Belarus and Kaliningrad, aiming to split Poland in two. Airborne units attempt to seize bridges, rail junctions, and key highways. Civilian evacuations begin as artillery rains down on border towns. Russia deploys mobile anti-aircraft systems to create a protective shield, hoping to keep NATO air power at bay during the initial surge. Spetsnaz units operate behind Polish lines, disrupting supply routes and targeting command centers. Phase 3. Strategic goals. This is not about occupying all of Poland. Russia's aim is to punch hard, fast, and deep enough to destabilize NATO and force political negotiations. Seizing a corridor from Kaliningrad through eastern Poland could create a buffer zone similar to tactics used in Georgia, Crimea, and eastern Ukraine. But Poland is no easy target. Over the past decade, it has become one of NATO's most heavily fortified frontline states. Its army is modern, mobile, and battle-ready. Its people are fiercely patriotic. And unlike in Ukraine, NATO is legally obligated to respond. The moment Russian forces cross into Poland, NATO activates Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. This is the nightmare scenario that the alliance has trained for, but never truly faced. Hour 1. Crisis mode. Air defense systems across Europe go online. NATO's Allied Command Operations declares DEFCON 3. American, British, and German troops already stationed in Poland begin mobilizing. Satellite feeds are redirected. Intelligence sharing shifts to real time. Hour 12. Air supremacy operations begin. US and NATO air forces launch from Germany, Italy, the UK, and the Baltics. Their first goal: neutralize Russian missile batteries and establish air superiority. F-35s and Eurofighters engage Russian aircraft over Poland and Belarus. Drones swarm the skies, feeding live data to commanders. Simultaneously, NATO naval forces move into the Baltic Sea, escorting carriers and preparing for blockade operations against Kaliningrad. Hour 24. Ground reinforcements deploy. Rapid reaction forces from across Europe begin arriving. French mechanized infantry, British paratroopers, German armor, and US Stryker brigades. High-speed rail corridors, built in part for this purpose, move troops toward the Eastern Front. Cyber commands in Brussels and Washington launch counterstrikes, targeting Russian communications, energy systems, and propaganda networks. The info war becomes just as vital as the physical one. Hour 48 to 72. NATO's first major counterattack. By now, Russia's hopes for a lightning victory are fading. NATO pushes hard to stop Russian advances, especially in the corridor between Kaliningrad and Belarus. Special forces conduct sabotage missions behind enemy lines. Polish resistance movements begin disrupting logistics, but the risks are rising. What happens if a NATO missile hits a target inside Russia? What if Belarus enters the war officially? What if Russia begins preparing nuclear forces as a signal or a threat? Escalation, from regional war to global crisis. By day 3 of the Russian assault on Poland, the battlefield has expanded far beyond Eastern Europe. The longer the fighting continues, the more the risk grows of miscalculation, of escalation, of catastrophe. The Baltic flashpoint. Russia begins threatening the Suwalki Gap, a narrow stretch of land between Belarus and Kaliningrad. If captured, it could cut off the Baltic states from the rest of NATO. In response, NATO deploys reinforcements to Lithuania and Latvia, while Finland and Sweden, now full members, prepare their forces. Kaliningrad becomes a battleground. NATO strikes its missile sites. Russia retaliates by targeting supply hubs in Germany and Romania. Civilian airports are closed. Europe is in full wartime mode. Cyber war goes global. Banks in London are hacked. Power grids in Paris go dark. Social media in the US floods with deepfakes and Russian disinformation. The line between battlefield and homefront disappears. Every citizen becomes a target digitally or physically. Naval battles in the North Atlantic. Russian submarines begin shadowing NATO shipping lanes. Convoys bringing American reinforcements and supplies to Europe are at risk. The US Navy reactivates Cold War-era tactics, anti-submarine warfare, carrier strike group formations, and convoy escorts. The nuclear shadow falls as NATO gains the upper hand on the ground. Russia grows desperate. Moscow raises its nuclear alert level. Tactical warheads are moved into position near Kaliningrad and Belarus. The message is chilling: escalate or back off. NATO leaders face impossible choices. Do they push forward and risk a nuclear response? Or negotiate from strength and risk, giving Russia what it wants? Meanwhile, the United Nations is paralyzed. China calls for peace but blames NATO. Iran begins making moves in the Middle East. North Korea test fires a missile into the Sea of Japan. The world now stands on a knife's edge. When Russia launches a full-scale assault on Poland, the world changes forever. But how does the war end, and what kind of world rises from its ashes? Scenario 1. NATO victory, Russian collapse. After months of fighting, NATO forces push Russia out of Poland. The cost is enormous: cities reduced to rubble, tens of thousands dead, and economies strained, but Article 5 holds. The alliance survives. Inside Russia, protests erupt. Sanctions bite deeper than ever. The ruble crashes. The Kremlin loses control of its narrative and possibly its grip on power. A new government may emerge, or civil unrest could plunge the country into chaos. But NATO's victory doesn't bring peace. The relationship between Russia and the West enters a deep freeze, perhaps for decades. A new Iron Curtain descends across Europe. Scenario 2. Frozen conflict, no winner. Neither side achieves a decisive victory. A ceasefire is brokered after massive losses. Russia retains some territory. Poland and NATO hold the line. But borders remain unstable and diplomacy turns to suspicion. A Cold War 2.0 begins, complete with rearmament, proxy wars, and information warfare. The European continent divides again. Every international crisis becomes a test of loyalty. Trust evaporates. Scenario 3. Escalation beyond control. If a single nuclear weapon is used, tactical or strategic, the consequences are irreversible. Whether it's a battlefield nuke in Poland or a retaliatory strike deeper into Europe, the world crosses a line not seen since 1945. Cities vanish, populations flee, international systems collapse. In this case, it's not just a new world, it's a broken one. A changed global order. Regardless of how it ends, the invasion of Poland resets the global balance. NATO expands its military footprint permanently. Europe rethinks its energy and defense dependencies. The US returns to Cold War posture. And neutral countries? They start choosing sides fast. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And in this case, the echoes of the 20th century are screaming into the 21st. If you found this scenario powerful, like the video and subscribe for more global what-ifs. Because the best way to prevent tomorrow's war is to understand it today.